Let's move on now. Time for an exclusive conversation. The shipping sector is facing concerns with respect to growing tensions in West Asia. So how does India stand? I mean, how severely exposed could we be to this? And of course, what is the way forward when it comes to development of waterways in the country, development of ports in the country? Let's talk about this and a lot more. We have with us Mr. TK Ramachandran, Secretary, Ministry of Ports, Shipping and Waterways, joining in for big picture perspective. So good morning. Thank you so much for joining in. It's a pleasure to have you on. So we want to start, of course, with the global developments to understand where we are. Now, it's a well-documented fact that 25 to 30% of the world's oil passes through the Strait of Hormuz. And as of now, it's operational. But, sir, what is it that sort of you have been, reading, hearing and preparing for if there is wider disruption? We believe tanker rates have already started moving higher. If the strait is shut down, even for a couple of days or weeks, how can India ensure its energy security? What are the alternatives? I mean, storage. What are we looking at, really?
We have a series of options. Of course, much of this is what the Commerce Secretary or the Petroleum Ministry would look at. As far as shipping is concerned, our role is to ensure availability of vessels. Our role is to ensure availability of containers, ensure that the ports are up and running. And if there are alternative routes, then we explore those alternative routes. Luckily for us, we've had several of these so-called shocks over the last few years, starting with COVID, and then we had the Ukraine crisis, and then we had the Red Sea. So over a period of time, not only has the sector learned to become more resilient, we have also learned to live with the additional costs that might come with having to reroute the ships via the Cape of Good Hope and so on. So I don't think we expect much of a problem because of all this, though there will be some disruptions, also some minor increases in prices, insurance premiums and so on.
Mr. Ramachandran, good morning, sir, and really great to have you on the program with us. Just to take that point which my colleague Surabhi asked forward, I was reading that tanker rates, VLCCs, very large crude carriers from the Gulf to China, pre-conflict they were at about 16,500. They've increased to about $48,000 now. So almost a 3x jump. Now, while a lot of the Iranian oil, bulk of the Iranian oil which goes to Asia goes to China, so that is separate, but we also get about 40% of our oil from that region. Not Iranian oil, but from that region. So obviously there are ships plying from that part to us. Have we also seen a big jump as the industry come to you?
Through that region.
Yeah, through that region. So have we seen a similar kind of jump? Anything you can tell us?
No, there are increase in rates, that much we have seen. And like I said, every time there is a disruption, there is a rerouting, and then there are increases in premium costs available. And because the rerouting happens, the availability of ships, that goes down, availability of containers goes down. So that leads to an increase in cost. And generally the industry has absorbed it. The market has absorbed it. So we haven't found that this has caused disruption in the supply chain. It manages itself somehow. Yeah.
So just one more point. This is something you had alluded to, so again, just going back to it. The rise in insurance costs. And that's already happening. I mean, if I look at some of the international sources, what they're saying is that insurers are now charging apparently 0.2% of the value of the ship. This is just in the last 2 weeks, 7-8 days since the conflict broke out, versus the earlier practice of maybe 0.125% of the value of the vessel in terms of insurance. If costs keep spiking, because there are a lot of these geopolitical conflicts all across, and, the Houthi threat, etc., I mean, is the government of India prepared to sort of support industry in any form? Has industry sort of expressed any concern on this? What happens?
At least so far in the shipping sector, we haven't heard from the industry, and they haven't really come forward with any specific demands. So as and when they come up with some specific demand, we will look at them and take appropriate steps as necessary.
Got that. Mr. Ramachandran, you know, all this sort of upheaval around the world throws up, of course, is, as in most sectors, maybe, you know, to reduce dependency, right? Now, in the case of shipping, especially cargo shipping, we rely, I think, almost 90% on foreign vessels. Is the government taking any concrete steps to boost Indian flagged fleet and reduce this dependence?
Yes, so see, there are some short-term measures that we need to take, obviously, which have to then be constrained by the fact of availability of ships. Then there are some medium and long-term measures that can be taken, and of course, you might have heard that in the recent budget that was announced in January of this year, there have been at least 3 measures which have been delineated. One of them has to do with increasing all of them basically have to do with increasing the tonnage, Indian tonnage, so that more ships are available, more ships are flagged in India, and more ships are built in India. And you're quite right, almost 90% of our cargo at the moment is carried by foreign flags. Therefore, there is a very urgent need to be able to use Indian flag ships to move our cargo, and therefore the government's 3 major measures. One was the upgradation of the existing shipbuilding financial assistance policy, so that more ships are built in India. And if they are built in India, they are usually also flagged in India, which means our tonnage increases. The second scheme is for increasing the availability of finance for the industry. As you're aware, the shipping industry was not classified as infrastructure, in the harmonized master list. Now it has been announced in the budget that it will be classified, it will be part of the HML. Therefore, they have access to better tenures, longer tenures, and lower interest rates, which means the industry gains and ships can be built, etc. in India, also owned. More of ownership can happen because you have access to funds which are at lower cost. And the Maritime Development Fund, the creation of this fund which gives equity support to ownership of ships in India, I think again at 25,000 crores is going to be a big boost to the shipping industry's the size of the shipping industry. And I think basically because of the Maritime Development Fund, we expect a lot of investments to flow in. And over the long term, of course, we expect that in the medium term, the ownership of ships will increase. In the long term, building of ships will increase. So these are things that we are expecting. And finally, there is a capability and capacity building pillar, the third announcement that was there in the budget. And in this, we are hoping to increase the capacities of the existing shipyards in the country, as well as open and launch new shipyards, at least 2 to 3 Greenfield shipyards, which will have huge capacities, and we will be able to build our own VLCCs and VLGCs, which we are not able to at the moment. So there is a lot of work going on all these areas, and I hope that the next time we have a crisis, we will be, really well prepared.
Yeah. Mr. Ramachandran, just a quick word, sir. How many ships as an industry do we make in India right now? And what's the ambition really? Globally, for example, US is talking about really building up their shipbuilding. I think they've been building a few less than 5 ships a year. China builds hundreds of them every year. It's by far the largest shipbuilder country. Could you give us the Indian context? How many? Where are we now? What's the ambition?
Yeah, so it has been very bad. Of course, we have moved. We were at 0.01 or something like that, and then we moved to 0.04 and now 0.08 million tons GT per annum. So which means we are at less than 1% of the world's shipbuilding output. So that is where we stand. And 3 countries, China at 60+%, Korea and Japan. These are the top 3 countries. Between them, they manufacture or build about 85% of the world's ships, which means we have a lot of catching up to do. Even if we are able to build about 500 or 600,000 GT tonnage over the reach that mark, we will be reaching the 5th or 6th position in the world. So the Maritime Amrit Kal vision, which was launched by the Honorable Prime Minister in 2023, has set a very clear vision for the country in terms of what we want to achieve by 2030 and where we want to be in 2047. So we want to reach the 10th position in the world by 2030 and the 5th position in 2047, which means we are looking at a CAGR of something like 8 to 9% if we just want to retain or slightly go ahead in terms of how much of our cargo we are able to carry. But if we want to carry 20% of our cargo, we have to grow at a CAGR of not less than 17-18%. So this is what we are aiming at, and we hope to be able to touch about 6 or 7 lakh GT per annum. It's about 10 times what we are doing, or 10 or 20 times what we are doing now in the next 5 years. That is how we are looking at it.
Okay, very, very interesting. So that's how the math and the numbers stack up if we are to build Atmanirbharta when it comes to our fleet as well. So that's about ships. I want to also get your view on ports and what's the big picture there, because according to some industry estimates, when there's a broker Motilal Oswal, their estimates say that the Indian port sector should grow at a steady clip of 4 to 7%, so mid-single digits basically, over the next several years in terms of how much cargo is being handled, what is the growth like. Do you agree with that assessment? Would you be satisfied with that rate of growth? And then, what happens, because we're in a world where supply chains are shifting dramatically. Trade patterns, trade routes, trade alliances are shifting rapidly. So how can the Indian port sector ensure that it takes advantage? We, of course, have projects like Vadhavan, and long time, but I think it's 5 years into completion, so it's a while away. But what do the next 2-3 years bring for the Indian port sector?
Like you just mentioned, see, we had a capacity of about 1,600 million tons about 10 years back. Now we are at 2,600 million tons in terms of capacity. The major ports, for instance, did about 500 plus tonnage, million tons 10 years back. Now they do about 850. And overall, it's about 1,500. So the major ports, which is the government-owned ports, the central government-owned ports, and the non-major, and we don't call them non-major any longer, because some of them are bigger than the so-called small major ports. For instance, Mundra, Pipavav, and so on. So the other than major ports is a term that I'd like to use, and which we now are tending more to use. So the other than major ports actually do about 45%. We do about 55%. So there is a lot of growth, as you can see. It's about 1.7x what was there 10 years back. This growth is attributed entirely to the ports investing in additional capacities and also to PPPs. Every port, the major port, has gone in for PPPs, and the capacity building is happening in partnership with the private sector also. And like you said, one port, Vadhavan port alone, will double our container handling capacity from 22 million tons per annum to about 45 million tons. So they add about 22-23 million tons. And also, the overall tonnage will be about 300 million. So it will be one of the biggest ports, not just in India, because now we have ports which do 150 million tons or 180 million tons. But one of the biggest ports in the world, which will handle about 300 million tons, will be the Vadhavan port. Then, of course, there is Galathea and so on. So our aim is to ensure that every single state does a master plan for the entire coast which falls within their state, and identifies places where ports can be built or expanded and upgraded, so that we have this master plan ready within the next few months. Therefore, we will be able to concentrate on certain projects which are of critical importance, strategic importance, and by 2047, we want to be at 10,000 million tons per annum, which will be one of the biggest shipping port capacities in the world. 10,000 million tons per annum is what we are expecting to reach in 2047.
Sir, just one question with regards to ports. If you look at the total port capacity, however you want to define it, within operated by the government and operated by the private sector, if you have those numbers ready, and every year, how much of it will you how much will be opened up to the private sector? Because that is the big hope for, we speak with listed port operators as well. Any guidance you can give us?
Yeah, I mean, we have a huge number of private PPP projects happening now. I think at last count it was about 81, and about 54,000 crores worth of PPP projects, being either underway or have been completed. I think about 34 or 35 have been completed in the last few years. And our aim is that 60%, at the moment we are handling almost 60% of our cargo through the private operators, which might be news to you. In JNPA, 100% of the cargo is handled by private operators.
Yeah.
So this jump which we have been, and it was only 30% a few years back. So this growth is happening because of the private sector involvement and the PPPs. And as you know, 30 years back, it was the shipping sector, the port sector, which first went in for PPPs, Mumbai and other places. Therefore, the port sector has a lead over many other sectors as far as PPPs are concerned. And it is our conscious attempt to ensure that we have better efficiencies, better ease of doing business, and of course, we bring in investment from the private sector and the speed of execution. So all these advantages we are seeing, and we hope to work on that and build on that.
Very good guidance and insights there. Just one last question. I mean, it's such a vast sector, waterways. And the government, as the Prime Minister said it, I mean, we've heard it from you earlier, we've heard it from the general thrust, right? Developing waterways, which is one of the cheapest modes of transportation, moving goods and people as well. On a lighter note, here in Mumbai, for example, we've been waiting for this Mumbai-Goa connectivity.
Or even within Mumbai, if I could add.
I'm glad you brought that up, Prashant. I mean, the ferry service, and I mean, there's so much chatter around it, on, off.
Yeah.
We want to know as Mumbaikars.
It is right there. I mean, the potential is there. Will we see quicker development, sir, on these projects?
Absolutely. In fact, I can go on and on about the waterways and the works that are happening. But just to keep it short, you see, we had 5 waterways 10 years back, national waterways. Now we are at 111, and about 29 of them are operational. This is in Mumbai, this is in Goa, Cochin, Kerala, Orissa, West Bengal, of course, Ganga and Brahmaputra and so on, Orissa. A lot of these waterways need to have water in order to have the ships moving or the vessels moving. So the first attempt has been to ensure that we dredge these fairways, they are called, creating and maintaining fairways. So dredging the national waterways and ensuring there is adequate depth, adequate water, so that the vessels can move, that is our first priority, and which is happening, already happened on the Ganga. We are now able to assure what is called the least assured depth. And it's like a chicken egg. Unless you have the depth ready, you cannot get the vessel moving. And the vessel will not come in unless you have the depth available. And if you have the depth available, you have to wait till the vessel becomes available. So this chicken egg situation is what we are trying to get out of. Then you require terminals which can handle the cargo and also ensure last mile connectivity. Luckily for us, we've built terminals, for instance, on the Ganga, on the Brahmaputra, at several other places. The terminals have been built. So again, we require vessels to move on these fairways. So again, vessels, we have invested in vessels. We have several vessels being bought as well as deployed on the Ganga, Brahmaputra, for instance. Many private operators have moved them. As you know, the cruise operators, for instance, there are more than a dozen of them moving along the Ganga, and some of the most successful movements are the cruise vessel movements, the river cruise.
Right.
Just for your information, one of the longest cruises in the world, river cruises in the world, the Ganga Vilas, it has moved 3,500 kilometers from Varanasi to Guwahati and Dibrugarh beyond. So this kind of river cruise is booked till 28, and all foreign tourists, cruise tourists. So this is the kind of thing that is possible if you develop this sector. But like I said, infrastructure, vessels, and of course terminals, and ensuring. And we have a scheme for cargo, which is called the Jalwahak scheme, which gives a 35% discount to all cargo which is more than transits over 300 kilometers or more. And
so very quickly,
we have several projects for transit and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, so very quickly, sorry to cut in because we're out of time. We've hit 10 o'clock. But very quickly, the coastal transportation, transportation of people. Any new plans afoot on that? Whether it is within coastal cities like Mumbai, whether it's Goa. Anything more on people transportation via the coastal routes?
That is the point I was coming to. That finally the integration between coastal and riverine movement. That is very crucial, because many vessels which can be used along the coast can also be used on the river, in the rivers. And therefore, if we integrate, we have seen that there is much more of synergy to be obtained, and the movements become more flexible, and we are able to generate more efficiencies. So that integration is what we are looking at.
Such a great conversation, and so much perspective and insight across your domains. Thank you very much for coming on and patiently taking us through all of that and developing all of this. Of course, such a critical part of the move towards the overall development of the country. Waterways, of course, very, very crucial. Thank you very much once again, sir, for being here on CNBC-TV18.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
All right, so that's the shipping, ports, waterways, sort of entire perspective coming through.